Welcome to Conversations. I'm Suresh Kochat. Wars, they say, is not a thrill. It's sometimes a tragedy. There is losses of man, machine, and of course, beyond that. But then wars are fought. We're seeing plenty of them going on right now. But how does things work behind the scenes? And for somebody who's seen that and done that is with me today. And he was with us a couple of weeks ago on one of our podcasts on NHS. Col Joy Dasgupta, Sena Medal. He retired from the army a couple of months ago, and today, as promised, when he's in Hyderabad next time, he would come to our studios and he is here with us. Namaskar, sir. Welcome to the show.
Namaskar, sir.
Colonel, to put things in a very simple perspective, Kargil is a memory that is slightly faded away from this particular generation that is there. The oldies might still remember it. But just to jog the memory of this generation, what was Kargil all about? In a brief storyline format, if you can tell us how did it happen and how was it sorted out?
As you said, jog down the memory and with the present generation to be aware of it, because the present generation, I think Kargil was the one which was telecasted the first
Time.
conflict for the first time, I think, on the drawing rooms
True.
of
Indian families.
Indian families and everything. So it caught the imagination. So when with that kind of info flow that goes in, there's shades of grey that does come into play. Too much of info. Some perceived, some assumed,
And some hyped up.
some hyped up, absolutely, and some factual. Now, there have been a lot of reports, commissions and all, but in a broad way, incursions were there, intrusions were there, but they were termed as, at that point of time, in the initial phase, that they were militants, they were terrorists. But the gravity was understood much later, where my unit 18 Grenadiers bore the brunt.
Now that has to be
Yeah,
explained in a more detailed format later.
This is where the apathy comes into play of personal leadership. I will not falter here with the organization or the nation or the society. It is personal, professional ethics and professional honesty does come into play. So the genesis of it is, which more or less the entire nation today is aware, it's there in all the commission reports and everything. But are we willing to take that responsibility and accountability? Yes, there has been a failure in the initial phase, in terms of what? Assessing and analyzing, not on the competence level and the professional this thing. It is assessing and analyzing. This is where the think tank has to come into play. And I personally feel, in terms of Kargil, since I was present when my unit was inducted and we were the first battalions. In fact, I would like to mention about one Naga, first Naga, which is with us in the CICT. They were supposed to go to Siachen and they were diverted, said, no, abhi tum Kargil mein ruk jao, ek kuch militants hai, unko ye karke nikalo.
But they didn't know how long it would take.
How long it would take, and then that is the apathy or the void. Now, one Naga got stuck, they had their own casualties. So somewhere at the top, in a hierarchical level kind of an organization, specifically in a democracy, the info flow is not so spontaneous until it's really emergency and critical.
No, I would draw a parallel to that with Operation Sindoor, which we'll take up later also.
Yeah.
In one of the questions that was asked at the senior level press conference, by the DGMO level, was the fact that it was directed specifically to Air Marshal Bharti. And he was asked, did we lose any aircraft? So his question or his answer was, at the end of the day, Did we achieve our objective? Okay. That is more important. Did we lose people? Did we lose anything? He didn't comment on that. It was a very, very diplomatically handled answer. I mean, look at Kargil. There were incursions. There were people sitting on top, initially assumed to be militants or terrorists, and later turned out to be Pakistani regulars.
Yes.
Carry on, sir.
With this, I would like to allude before my flow of thoughts go away. When you talked about this thing, that's why the commission report, the theaterization aspect is there, where more synergy is seen and visualized in the present Op Sindoor thing.
Okay. They were all working in silos before.
Yes. I mean, everybody's doing the job, but the real synergy, the tri-services, that was much wanted. Of course, there have been a lot of conceptual papers floated around of the pros and cons, that why does India require a theatrization, and then of course inter-services, I won't call it rivalry, inter-services.
Egos.
No, I won't put it as egos. Relevance. I'll put it that way. Of course, a soldier is supposed to have an ego. There's no doubt about it. Without an ego, you cannot implement things. But the relevance, and believe me, the relevance is of all the three arms, the Army, Navy and Air Force, is very important. It's synergizing those arms, the services, is a huge challenge and a task. There have been a lot of baby steps that has been taken up, and we have got few prestigious institutions which are this thing. We have got the DSSC, NDC, Staff College and everything who have got the tri-services. It's getting to, but at the ground level, there has been a lot of those challenges. Now coming back, and when you said that even Bharti, when he said that, he gave a very diplomatic answer, I don't expect a young squadron leader or a captain or a major to be a diplomat. He is to be a soldier. The problem with diplomacy is you have to convey it, this thing. So that's best, one of the. So at that level, he had to be a diplomat, especially when you're coming out in a very.
No, we even saw that with CDS Anil Chauhan in Singapore, where again he was asked a very similar question, and he was answering the same way. It is not the losses that count. End of the day, did you win the match?
Absolutely, what he said was absolutely right, and I fully this thing, because as you yourself opened up, that war has got its own toll.
Correct.
Nobody wants it. There's going to be losses. There's going to be human, and that's part of the game. Yes, that's why in my earlier podcast I said, let's not over romanticize it.
That's what the movies do with the army movies.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, we are doing a bit. That extra bit, I agree to it. Death is a constant factor, unlike other professions. Agreed. But when we talk of human life, that is where the organizational culture and the equipment that is being provided for, and the training that makes a difference whether you lose your men. And so when both the DGMO of Air Force and the CDS who have said, yes, that is one aspect, that we have not lost any human, because I said when they made this profound statement, when the CDS says, as all the tri-services, is the CDS of all the tri-services, in the thing, he told a very, very profound thing that we have not. Why? Because a pilot, to get a pilot,
I know where they're coming from.
And the way they have been trained in this thing, you're looking at only what, a $50 million aircraft?
Doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter, but that pilot will be ready with the next aircraft. That's how the security of a nation is doctrined. Yeah, though human life is important, no doubt, but that's your profession, that's your job.
No, that's exactly what I remember attending one of those earlier passing out parades at Hakimpet, and I don't remember who was there actually reading out the citations and other things. But when the address of the chief guest came up, and he said, "Forget the aircraft. It takes man days and man days to kind of build a pilot."
Yeah.
your life is more expensive than the aircraft. That is why it has an eject button.
Absolutely.
Carry on, Colonel.
So with that, this thing. So of course, there's been a doctrinal paradigm shift from Kargil to what you're saying, since you brought up Sindoor. And this paradigm shift is in the concept of warfare itself.
And we saw that with the Russia-Ukraine war. That's where it all started, isn't it?
No, yes, partly, but I would like to bring in the grey zone warfare.
Okay, what's that?
The grey zone warfare is something which is, how to put it, got something neither templated as per war norms and peace norms.
Something that just happens.
No, it's something which is doctored,
Okay.
where both tools of hybrid means and asymmetric means are utilized with info warfare, with a narrative warfare. Like when you use this, when you said about Russia and Ukraine, it all started with grey zone warfare in 2014, where the Russians, they used their little men in greens without the Russian insignia of their armed forces. They just infiltrated and took over Crimea, which was part of Ukraine as an autonomous region. And then they did it after 2 years, I think, Donetsk also.
Yes,
they did it that same way.
Complete belt they took over.
So, and then what they did was, if you look at it, they did it in such a way, and they created a grey zone warfare. The local population was co-opted into it, a subtle way, and they did it. But the problem now that Russia is facing is that grey zone warfare, you have achieved initial strategic goal of occupying it, but it has now escalated to a full-fledged conventional war.
Which is where my point comes in. I'm sorry breaking your thought there. Many people asked, why did Modi ji end, or rather the Indian armed forces end the present conflict with Pakistan in 4 or 5 days? Why didn't we go the whole hog? People sit in their drawing rooms, living rooms, and they are army experts or defense experts during a scenario like that. They become a cricket expert when IPL T20 happens, tell Dhoni how to bat. And when Nirmala Sitharaman delivered the budget, they become the economic experts, all that. But as a veteran who's seen war up front in Kargil, having won a Sena medal for your bravery, do you think Russia has lost a lack of people? They say sometimes they're describing it in million, according to Trump. Ukraine lost something very similar. An entire generation has been wiped out. Do you think it was sensible to end the conflict with Pakistan on day 5?
That's a matter to, at a subjective level, knowing our an average Indian's mindset, everybody will bay for blood.
Lahore pakad ke leke aao.
And you will see one extreme sense of jingoism being there. Perhaps if I would have not been in the army, or perhaps if I have not fought a war, not been part of Op Vijay, with my unit 18 Grenadiers, perhaps I would have also bayed for the same blood. This thing. So when the government takes a decision, whether it's, it has to be usually on a consensus, and especially in a democratic setup.
True.
So the Honorable Prime Minister Modi, if you see, I have a feeling, knowing my organization, the hierarchy, I'm very sure he wouldn't have taken a unilateral decision and told that no.
He would have consulted everybody.
Exactly. And when the military leadership, whether it's of the Air Force, Army, Navy, who sit there along with the Ministry of Home Affairs, a lot of simulations are done. Okay, if we continue it for one more week, what is the advantage? If we stop now, so you'll have those pros and cons. Problem, what the thing is, yes, at a personal level, perhaps one more day would have been better, Because after that, we hear a lot of stories.
How we flattened them out.
Yeah, how many flattened, and the American assets were also there. And also, see, unfortunately, since you're not involved personally and you cannot comment on those things, so a lot of assumptions take place. But believe me, the momentum which was was achieved, if that momentum at a personal level, I mean, purely from a professional viewpoint, perhaps for one more day, things would have been slightly better. But this is at a personal level who is not personally involved and is not in the think tank. So, whatever decision they have taken, it must be in a well calibrated, a well nuanced discussion. Now, there are so many other non-state players.
True.
You have got the diplomacy thing going into it. You have got your economic things. Now, in your grey zone warfare, you have got this concept of political coercion.
You have to face the pressure from everybody.
You have everything. One of the best parts of the this thing is about Russia and Ukraine, or for that matter, even Iran, Israel. And why go outside? Look at our own country. You'll find many of our political leaders across spectrum. I will not say opposition or the party. Certainly, will have been criticizing Op Sindoor itself.
That is when the body bags come home.
No, what happens is that is nothing but a part of grey zone warfare, where either by design they have been cultivated, or they have been fooled by the external threats, media and everything. So there's a design to it. Now, this is where the discerning intellect is so important of an individual of across the spectrum, be it within the political party system and all. What is the priority at this stage? Boss, we'll have our own rabble-rousings, our own internal issues, fair enough. But now, and here I give credit to the government that they send this special parties composing of the all political parties, where Honorable Minister Shashi Tharoor, I mean, not Minister, sorry, as an MP, Supriya Sule and all. I mean, they came across and they did a wonderful job.
Even Owaisi, for that matter.
Exactly, from Hyderabad. I mean, like, come what may, I mean, you have to give that credit. See, at the end of the day, it is our nation, our society.
So, Colonel, where the point was very clear is that, had it been a longish war, like what happened with Ukraine and Russia, which is supposed to be over in a week's time, Russia would steamroll Ukraine, finish them off and be done and dusted. But 3 years later,
absolutely. The same public, the same common man would have been baying for your blood by saying that what have we got with this war? So correct. I personally feel, I mean, again, that we have achieved a great strategic aim. And what is a great strategic aim was that Pakistan today knows, not only Pakistan, the world knows that the threshold level of tolerance and where we can go and hit, they have understood that.
That is exactly my point. Now, some people say in the last 3 days, there have been discussions on what Israel did with Iran. They hit their air assets first, that is the air defense asset. And now they're saying we are dominating the skies. Okay, one thing we didn't do was we didn't take out the military leadership. For very obvious reason. Israel could do it. They are the kind of people who don't listen to anybody. But Colonel, when you look at Kargil, when you look at that is Operation Vijay, when you look at what happened with India-Pakistan in terms of the Operation Sindoor, and when you look at Israel-Iran right now, and of course in between the Ukraine-Russia war, there are boots on the ground in Ukraine-Russia war. At the same time, there is plenty of missiles and drones being traded about. Operation Sindoor saw technology at play first time. We never crossed the border, yet we achieved a lot of our objectives. What are the lessons that the Indian Armed Forces has learnt, not just from Operation Sindoor, but also looking at the other conflicts that are going on?
Firstly, sir, let me tell you, boots on ground is going to stay. It's going to be there. It's going to be the mainstay of it. Present-day conflicts, if they're short and crisp, then boots on ground is not required. It will never be required. But for that, the deliverables in terms of weapon systems, the man behind that machine, and the criticality of those weapons functioning in your terrain, like S-400 has not been greatly successful with Russia, whereas it's been successful in India.
Yeah.
Okay, that's again a separate debate on itself. When we talk of this thing, that's why I feel that when the decision was taken by the government that to stop and the ceasefire was agreed to on the request of Pakistan, it is a wonderful thing because it's not that you cannot outfight as a nation Pakistan, but it would have been a huge economic
Cost.
Now, as it is, due to a lot of recessions and a lot of other issues which we have, and in fact, the economic tariffs which President of America, Mr. Trump has done it, it's nothing but a part of gray zone warfare. It's part of gray zone warfare. And now when we realize this, you have to understand, when we go slightly from that, there's a non-linear conflict.
What is that?
In a non-linear conflict, since you have been mentioning about Iran and Israel, when firstly, they don't share any land borders.
Correct. They are
So
across the
boots and
seas.
ground. In fact, the Iran army has got more boots.
But they can't go to Israel.
They can't go to Israel. But you have got economic embargoes and sanctions, so you cannot pump in money with so much of missiles to throw at them. So it's only Lebanon, Gaza and all. So what you do is you orchestrate and create a group, the Hezbollahs. Then in Yemen, the Houthis.
Correct.
So that is a non-linear conflict. So you engage them in a proxy through. Now, Israel is a nation which is built through a lot of sacrifice and character. We have to accept it.
Yeah, it's a
And
question of survival.
I mean, it's inbuilt in them. So, you see from the past 20 years, they have been fighting the Hezbollah. You look at how last year in the tunnels where the Israeli women were captivated during that thing, and how they were rescued, how the negotiation and all complete was done. They realized one thing. The mother lode is Iran. So let's target them.
Samka,
So, and they're justified in their own way.
the head of the snake.
Yes, but the question now comes is, how do you justify it? So nucleus. I mean, that's my thinking. I might be off the mark, maybe. There may be so many other factors. The problem is you have so many countries interdependent, intertwined. Now the destiny of a nation is purely in the hands of the political leadership. Any nation. Today Iran
True.
is this thing. So at the end of the day, again, I mean, like from non-linear conflict, as I said earlier, that the paradigm shift has been there. But the same non-linear conflict, if it goes like it has acquired the status of conventional war between Russia and Ukraine,
Then it will
because
be
a conventional mode will always be there more effective when they share the boundaries. Americans never will fight with their own in their own land. They'll fight.
never have done
it.
except for Pearl Harbor and 9/11.
Yeah, absolutely.
Vietnam,
And
Somalia.
see, the culture of Japan has changed when they surrendered.
True. In fact, Colonel, one point which you all often speak about, you did mention in between, is a man behind the machine, or today we even call it women behind the machine. You might have the greatest of technologies. You saw S-400 work in India. It didn't work in Russia, maybe different circumstances. But today, in today's army, unlike the old days, when they say in Hindi, कुछ नहीं कर रहे जिंदगी में तो फौज में भर्ती हो जाओ. I guess that was a very, very, very rudimentary way of saying things. Today, there's a shortage of officers in the army. At the same time, today with this advent of technology, the Agniveers and the way the anti-aircraft systems were handled at the lower end of the air defense system, do you think there is a need for the Indian armed forces? I'm not just saying army, armed forces, because the Air Force and Navy, at the end of the day, they have more technology anyway. But boots on the ground, things to fight for. Do you think the time has come now? I know you have a lot of opinion on Agniveer also, to change the way army is recruited, trained, and of course they fight.
I'll take this in two parts. First, we cannot be fatalistic and have a very rigid view, but at times rigidity matters
Okay.
and it helps. Now, when you talk of cost, the concept of Agniveer was what? Basically to what do you call
Reduce the age.
No, that was there, agreed. That is one of the parameters. It is not reducing the age. When the normal recruitment was also done, it was with the same age profile, only people were coming.
But they're exiting the system in 5 years.
Exactly. Now I'm coming to that point. That's the way this thing is. First, and the most foremost thing is, you want a younger profile. Fair enough. It looks very good on paper, the younger profile. I agree to that. But the basic more consideration was economics. The economics was not for the pensionary benefit. It is more for the capital expenditure.
You hardly
In
had
terms of any money left in your budget.
15% for capital. That's it.
That's it. And then the Navy says they want a aircraft carrier. The Air Force says we have got an aging fleet. You have to take 5th generation aircrafts. The Army says we want next generation S-400, 500. Now, it is pure mathematics. So when you sit at that level, especially at the planning level, especially with the bureaucrats or the politician, the political and all, including the military leadership, reality check is there. And that is where that's where the, though there's been a lot of, papers, discussion and brought out. But at a personal level, when I look at it, when you compromise on, you have overlooked, not you, I'm talking about, we have overlooked a particular aspect. 4 years, different terms of engagement, different pay scales, within the same organization, with the same unit. Now, he is not being trained for specialist weapons system.
A generalist.
He is only a generalist. Because there is no guarantee he'll be within that 25% of retention or 50%.
What do you think the number of years should go from 4 to 7, as many army officers are saying?
That is, again, they're trying to follow the TA concept of 7 years, which this thing is. Again, it's flawed. I personally look at it, it's flawed. See, the problem is, you cannot take the template of the concept of conscription or a draft, like Israel, or like in Korea, or even for that matter in China. It is purely a voluntary force. Everybody comes out of will. Now the terms of engagement, there are very few senior hierarchy law, even the previous law, pre-1971, it was only 9 years of service. There was no pension authorized at that time. But then there was a committee which set up. And you know how this 15 years of color service had come into play. Okay. That 15 years of color service had come basically that you needed your senior lot, experienced lot to continue to have a repository of that.
Seniority?
Not only seniority, weapon, to handle this weapon system. Experience. Today an Agniveer, he is doing a general soldier's duty, one, because of economic considerations, like an ATGM missile, it costs money. AGL, grenades. For training, we don't have that kind of this thing. So, are we, they're going to say, no, let us get it done with the, because we don't know whether he'll get retained after 4 years.
Is it a waste of
So
training?
the capacity building is, I mean, that is my perspective to the thought process. Now, but then the balance, because we have to. So then, today, we are still not 100% enrollment has not been done. One, due to COVID. Of course, that was one of the main reasons. But then still, we are efficiently, operationally working. So what you do is, you reduce intake. Don't put 100% of enrollment.
Reduce the intake.
Reduce the intake. Don't tweak. I mean, that's my personal, this thing is there. You make it with 60%, make it optimize.
Quality versus quantity.
Yeah, perfect. The tooth to tail ratio. Now you will have 75% of the agnivees will be disheartened once they don't get retained, will go out. They will get absorbed somewhere. Of course, the government has taken up some steps. There has been BSF, CRPF and all that stuff. But you know, when we go into such kind of a tinkering, it has got long-term ramifications on the national security.
Colonel, I'm a layman. Okay, national security, we will keep it there right now. When I say a short service commission officer and an Agniveer, what's the difference?
There's a fundamental difference in, firstly, the leadership role. Because an Agniveer is through the same process of what the normal Jawans which is done. But as an SS officer, you're going through the same UPSC exam and you're going through the same SSB, this thing. So that is one of the...
But you're out in 5 years.
You're out in 5 years. And you know what was the earlier rationale? That why have a pension liability when you can get younger soldiers, officers? You have told it, but then I said capacity building. In that 5 years, when an SS officer, most of them they have only done the basic course of the VIOs and everything, you know, basic weapon systems and all, which is part of it. But then he's out totally. But you're not this thing. So when you do the major courses, that comes into play. So, but in Agniveer, what is happening is, they are your working, the functional requirement. Today, even if an officer is not there, though there's a shortage of officer, there's a JCO. There's another officer who takes off the other company also. That is why he's an officer. But at the lower level, it cannot be replaced.
Which brings me to the question now as we close this conversation, is the fact that the government of India has, in its right wisdom, about almost 6 years ago, taken a decision that weaponry, which you mentioned in the conversation, in various formats, will be made in India. For various reasons. One is we create more employment. Second is we are not subject to blackmail by another nation tomorrow when we get into a conflict. When you speak of this manpower that is now generated, I other day heard that BrahMos is going to absorb a lot of these Agniveers. Now I'm sure officers like you, I mean, maybe somebody who's in the short service commission will also find gainful employment in this new defense private industries. Do you think Atmanirbhar Bharat as a concept, because we made INS Vikrant in-house, at least with 75% local component, do you think it's a concept that will work well in the days to come, or do you think we need more of international collaborations to go to that standard of making a 5th generation aircraft?
It will, on paper, yes, but on ground, it will not work that well. Why? Firstly, as I said, unlike China, which has got a very single, you know, they have got a military industrial complex.
Okay.
The Russian has got this thing. We are not yet attuned to it.
You have to build it.
You have to build it. That will take time. Though now that start is there, which is good. It's really good. You look, in the chip warfare, if you look, India has just started with the semiconductors. It started with 92 nm and 28 nm. whereas Americans and the Chinese have gone to 2 nm, which is more thinner this thing. So, but the logistics and the wherewithal, which never, that's a good start. That's a good start. Now, as regard to the people who get absorbed, they have to be technically very much qualified to get absorbed in such this thing. It's not just a normal security job, unfortunately, and that has to change.
Like that's what most army men end up as.
These are nothing but disruptive technologies. We have to understand. And the first disruptive technology is way back in 20 years back, e-commerce aa. There's a disruptive technology. Though it makes your life easy, but it's a disruptive technology.
Correct.
Now, the retail industry has gone for this thing. It's now directly with the consumer to this thing. You look at Uber and all. So it's a disruptive technology.
The middleman is not there.
The middleman is not there. But what has happened is you are impacted the employment of. Now you look at other disruptive technology. It's AI. So, but how many people? Okay. Now what has happened is you have got AI with ChatGPT with MS Excel. So your cognitive skill has gone down. You are getting everything prepared through AI and a ChatGPT where there's no original thought of yours.
In fact, that's a point which I want to bring in as we finally come to the end of the conversation. Is CDS Chauhan had mentioned that space is the next frontier, and it is repeated by the Air Force and Army and Navy also, chiefs. Space is the next frontier for India's military. Now, do you think when you look at China, when you look at US, when you look at what Israel is doing with its Iron Dome and rest of the stuff, look at what Iran is doing with its missiles and its arsenal, the Russia-Ukraine war, which we spoke about. Do you think the Indian Armed Forces is ready for it?
Yes, in fact, I feel with our Department of Space, ISRO and NRSC, National Remote Sensing Agency, now NRSC, this thing, and SAC, Space Application Center, there has been a lot of synergy of late from the last 1.5 decades. And what the CDS General Chauhan was mentioning and everybody, he's absolutely on the right, this thing, that the next frontier, the space frontier. And in fact, there have been certain good achievements and developments done, which is, of course, not in so much in the open domain,
You cannot speak about it also.
No, it's not so much available even to the common military man also. It's this thing. And believe me, the nation is really progressing in a right direction, the right space. Unfortunately, as I said, that it's a democratic setup,
You're not China.
We are not China. And, they have got their own challenges, but they have got their own, it's a vision with a clear-cut vision. They bring in all parameters, economic, politics, in the strategy. Unfortunately, in our case, it's only driven either military and economics, but we don't have other parameter factors into it. So that's the synergy.
Wonderful. For the viewers who really are not aware about Col Joy Dasgupta, Sena Medal winner, fought in the Kargil War, was one of the leading teams that went on to capture the Tololing Peak and the Hump and then the Tololing Peak. He personally killed about 3 or 4 of those Pakistani intruders. For his bravery, he was awarded the Sena Medal, and today he's sitting in front of me here. Very proud of him, because last time when I wanted to speak to him, he was still serving in the army, and he said, I cannot officially speak. But then today we have a chance, now that he's hung up his boots, though I will say that it is only in terms of the official title, but I'm sure that he's continuing with his thought processes. Wonderful speaking to you, Colonel. And I'm sure that when you're here the next time, or whenever we converse, we go to newer subjects, because this thing is so vast. Absolutely. Because the field suddenly, the war is not a war anymore. The entire concept is changed. It is somebody sitting in a room somewhere, pressing a few buttons, who decides the fate of a nation.
Absolutely.
And that is what is happening. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Ladies and gentlemen, that was Col Joy Dasgupta, Sena Medal. Of course, a person who spoken to us earlier and told us how he and his men captured those high ranges in Kargil, Dras and along Tololing, especially the Hump, where he was involved. But more than that, Colonel Dasgupta brings with him a wealth of knowledge because he actually seen action up front. But then, as we spoke about, technology is bringing a whole new dimension into this today's warfare. It's no longer kind of a mass fight. It's no longer men running across or building trenches. It's all changed, maybe for the better. But then we will know how things move as we go along. And surely there'll be a lot of lessons that our armed forces are learning and relearning. And of course, putting into their doctrines. Thank you for watching. Jai Hind.